You will call me Commander.
Yo Joe, how we all doing today? Now it's no surprise that I loved G.I. Joe. There was nothing I wanted more than one of those figurines. But there was one character I particularly loved, and no, it wasn't Duke. I love Snake Eyes, but I'm not talking about him either. You know that phase when you're tired of rooting for the good guys? Yep, I was going through something like that because I couldn't get enough of Cobra Commander. I mean, come on, the guy ran a snake-themed terrorist organization with some very cool vehicles and almost a whole army. He just went around spreading chaos with his chrome masks. Interestingly enough, the character was created by Marvel Characters writer and editor Larry Hama in 1982 as this narcissistic, in love with the sound of his own voice leader, modeled after William F. Buckley Jr. But what makes this character special is that after his original creation, with every new version, Cobra Commander took on new life. So who is Cobra Commander? And I know that sounds like an existential crisis waiting to happen, but that's the thing about Cobra Commander. He's kind of a man shrouded in mystery. There's no one origin story. In some versions, he's a used car salesman who lost everything, and in others, he's a corporate tech billionaire. Now, you guys might not be familiar with all of his origins, well, because there are many, unless you're some G.I. Joe fanatic, in which case, welcome to the club, guys. But the rest of you, don't worry, because we'll be exploring all the origins of Cobra Commander. Be prepared to be shocked and surprised, and in awe by the end of this video. Cobra Commander origin in Marvel Comics. Alright guys, so let's start with what many fans consider the definitive origin of Cobra Commander, and now if you disagree, go all out in the comments guys, we want to hear you debate. But right now, let's talk about his origins in G.I. Joe, a real American hero. There isn't much known about his original name or even his childhood, but what we do know is that he used to be a used car salesman. He was your everyday American citizen trying to earn a decent living while his older brother fought in the Vietnam War. This was the story of most people back then, and I actually really like that because it makes us think that Cobra Commander could be anyone, you know? His older brother Dan actually volunteered repeatedly to save him from getting conscripted. But when Dan returned from Vietnam, everything changed. Of course, imagine what war does to a person. His tours had left him broken, empty, and suffering from deep psychological trauma in silence. He started becoming erratic and impulsive and engaged in self-destructive behaviors by basically becoming an alcoholic. All your classic signs of PTSD or trauma. Until one day, it ultimately led to his tragic demise. He ended up in a car accident with another family. Naturally, this shattered the life of, well, since we don't know his real name, let's just call him Cobra Commander. He was angry and would do anything for revenge. Of course, life did go on, and he got married and even had a kid, but he always held on to that anger, and finally he did something about it. You see, in that car crash there was another family involved, the family of another veteran. That veteran too lost his parents and his sister, but with no one else to blame, Cobra Commander decided to get revenge from this veteran. What's his name, you ask? Well, he needs no introduction whatsoever because it's none other than Snake Eyes. So Cobra Commander tracked Snake Eyes to Japan where he was traveling with the Arashikage ninja clan. He even hired the mercenary Firefly to assassinate him, but Firefly instead directed him to Zartan to do the job. Now, as you can imagine, nothing goes right for our commander as Zartan kills the wrong person. He kills the Hard Master, which basically triggers a whole feud with the Arashikage ninja clan, and also leads to the origins of Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and their brotherly rivalry. But guys, the story doesn't end there. When he's back from Japan, his wife finds out about his misdeeds and is prepared to tell on him to the authorities. So what does he do? He runs away with his son Billy. Then, on the road, began a whole string of con jobs, illicit scams, and pyramid schemes to somehow scrape by. And naturally, he blamed the US system. The system that had failed him and had basically taken everything from him. So, he began his journey of finding other like-minded people who were sick of the American social system and would love to topple the big businesses and the US government. And that's how the Cobra movement began. It literally started out like some motivational movement and then turned into a cult, and then of course a terrorist organization. I really liked how this entire origin actually parallels how extremist groups are formed in real life. They portray a very realistic picture of how people get radicalized. Cobra Commander himself originated from the failures of the system and then realized that angry people like him are easy to organize, radicalize, and manipulate. Just give them a common enemy and watch them dance, you know? Wait guys, there's more. Remember Billy, his son? In issue 55 of the comics, we get yet another glimpse into his backstory and past. You see, when Cobra Commander took Billy and ran, he didn't actually do it out of love or anything. In fact, he was a pretty cruel father. He basically imprisoned Billy and even subjected him to Dr. Venom's brainwave scanner. He made his son's entire existence a nightmare and single-handedly pushed him towards the anti-Cobra resistance. And guess what? We only find out all of this because, as it turns out, Billy ended up in a car explosion under mysterious circumstances. You know what I'm talking about. He was the only survivor and had been in a coma for a year since that happened. Poor kid had third-degree burns and had lost an eye and a leg. One of the officers who had found Billy recognized Cobra Commander from the picture Billy carried in his wallet. As much as I want to feel bad for the guy, I can't really excuse him being a shitty father. But I guess this is what revenge and power and bitterness does to a man, and that's one hell of a scary origin story.
Tension.
Cobra Commander's origin in G.I. Joe the movie, 1987. If you guys haven't watched this, trust me, it's the real deal. It will leave you baffled and surprised and confused and amazed all at the same time. And oh my god, the voice of Cobra Commander. Once you've heard it, that stuff cannot be unheard. Now, in the animated film, his origin story takes a wild turn. In this version, he isn't just a human revolutionary. In fact, he isn't a human at all. He's actually a part of an ancient hidden civilization called Cobra La. Cobra La is basically a secret society of highly evolved serpent-like beings, almost half human, half serpent, and they existed long before humans came around. These creatures in fact once ruled the Earth around 40,000 years ago, and that too with some very advanced biotechnology. But then the Ice Age struck and that destroyed their civilization and all their glory. Eventually it became the time of humans. They went from being barbarians to discovering fire and then eventually developing some super advanced tech. And considering the sheer inability of humans to coexist with others, naturally Cobra La saw the human civilization and culture as an abomination and a threat. So they retreated and decided to remain hidden in the shadows, plotting for their revenge and planning to reclaim the surface world. Now here's where Cobra Commander comes in. You see, Globulus, the leader of the Cobra La, had discovered a brilliant young nobleman who was working on biological weapons. He had a horrible accident in the lab which left him disfigured. But Globulus saw something in him. He picked him as their representative, their agent on the surface, their savior even. His task was pretty simple: go out into the world and raise the biggest army for Cobra La so that they could finally take their rightful place in the world and defeat and destroy the humans once and for all. The very humans that had driven them into exile. This nobleman is who we now know as Cobra Commander. He was their hope, he was their shot at redemption, and for a while things were going well. He did manage to raise an army, fight the G.I. Joe on occasion, and spread a whole lot of fear and instability. But as we know, he also failed, like, a lot. Globulus was fed up of his failures and wanted to punish him, that too in the most horrifying way possible. They mutate him into a snake. Yes, literally. Cobra La and Globulus had planned to launch spore pods filled with mutative spores that would turn all of humanity into snakes, and all that would be left on the planet would be snakes. I guess Cobra Commander ended up as their first test subject, and what a scene, man. The way he transforms and how his armor and clothes rip while he's just screaming, "I was once a man!" In this moment you see that he isn't just a villain, you see his desperation, but he's actually just a tool, a medium by which Cobra La would regain their glory. And as we all know, tools are replaceable. So I guess that's all Cobra Commander really was to them. Quite sad, right? Poor guy just wants some power and recognition but fails every time. I would love to see an alternate reality where Cobra Commander actually wins for a change, you know?
Or to have you beheaded for terminal stupidity!
Cobra Commander origin episode in G.I. Joe, a real American hero, TV series 1985 to 1986. Alright, so next up we've got the G.I. Joe cartoon, but the funny thing is that it technically never fully explains Cobra Commander's origin, and that's like the most Cobra Commander thing ever. No one, not even his own followers, know exactly where Cobra Commander came from. All they know is that he's their leader, and he's like your typical unhinged leader who's loud, dramatic, constantly shouting orders, threatening the G.I. Joe team and arguing with his own people. But things go sideways in the 5-part storyline, Arise Serpentor, Arise, in Season 2 of the cartoon. Instead of giving us a legit backstory, they just mock and make fun of the Commander. It mostly shows Cobra Commander lose power when Serpentor is created, but we do get a few hints regarding regarding his past before the 1987 movie retcons everything with Cobra Law. You see, in the Season 1 episode 20 Questions, Cobra Commander tells a journalist a story from when he was young. Apparently, he led a mutiny at his military academy. The school had super strict leadership and he led the rebellion against it. So he was a leader with the courage to challenge authority, and this is how he realized his natural leadership ability. Of course, he painted the institution as corrupt and oppressive and all things bad, whereas he was just the righteous man exposing the truth, a man who is destined to lead revolution. But what's interesting is that the show never confirms whether this story is actually true. And we all know that Cobra Commander lies and manipulates like nobody's business. So it might just be that he exaggerated or just made the whole thing up. All that we know for certain is that by the time the cartoon began, Cobra Commander was already at the top. Granted, it all comes tumbling down in Arise Serpentor Arise. His team was basically fed up of his constant failures and wanted a new leader. So, Mindbender gathered DNA from some of history's greatest military commanders, like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Genghis Khan, and used it to create a genetically engineered leader called Serpentor. Everyone was on board with the plan, including Destro and the Baroness, and all of them. And the moment Serpentor awoke, he became the leader of the Cobra. Wow, humiliating stuff for Cobra Commander. Imagine literally building the organization from the ground up and then being replaced. Ouch, that must have hurt. What I liked the most is that despite his anger and humiliation, he never actually abandoned Cobra. He even saved Serpentor's life. I guess somewhere in his mysterious backstory, he also learned the value of loyalty. Cobra Annual 2012, The Origin of Cobra Commander. Okay guys, you gotta get ready for this one because it's about to blow your minds. Cobra Annual 2012 shows us a glimpse of what happens after the Cobra Civil War has ended. Turns out we're getting a whole new ruthless commander with one hell of a backstory. It was in the middle of nowhere in some country without a name, over the borders of Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and China. It was the land of opium with poppy fields covering every inch, and there was constant warfare, a civil war of sorts, a war on drugs. But life still went on. Amidst all the explosions and death, a son was born right there on the battlefield, and he had the eyes of a tiger. Mother and son ended up displaced as tribes fought one another, but they managed to start a simple new life in another tribe. All was well until one day his mother was attacked by a few men. Tiger Eyes, a child born out of war, a child who has seen guns and grenades from his very first breath, did the one thing he knew best. He killed those bastards. But his mother ended up as a casualty. That day onwards, he was no longer a boy. He was a soldier and an orphan. Eventually, he started working for the drug cartels, but was truly only loyal to himself. He became ruthless with his gun. He could shoot helicopters from the sky by killing their pilots. That's how precise he was, and all the people looked up to him. But that wasn't the end of his escapades. He even briefly entered into service for the Thai Air Force to assassinate a man. And as the general paid him for a job well done, he killed the man and took all the money for himself. Tiger Eyes knew that he'd have to take everything by force. You get only what you take. As the years passed, he did pretty much any and all jobs from line drops, collection, and receiving deliveries to being a hitman. Eventually, he ran into Major Blood. Yep, that one. And he was actually quite impressed with the young man, even giving him the name Crake, which is a snake from Australia because he's just that rapid. Tiger Eyes, or Crake, is then seen in Thailand trying to find out more about the people who ambushed him and took over the opium trade. You know, the Cobra. And boy, did they not like being asked questions about, you know, how they like operating from the shadows and whatnot. So they barged into his house, beat the crap out of him, and instead of killing him, the Baroness asked him to join them. Crake, ever the loner, did not react well and tried to fight it, only to lose and soon become unconscious. Soon he was on the run with his face and identity exposed, and a whole lot of people wanting to kill him. I mean, I'm sure in this business you make more enemies than you can remember, but Crake somehow manages to find Major Blood and strikes a deal with him. A new face for him doing their dirty job. He was about to take on the Triads, which is basically a criminal society even older than the Cobra. And let me tell you guys, he was meant to be the Cobra Commander. When he finally got his new face, the first thing he did was eliminate the surgeons who did the procedure. No evidence left behind. This guy was merciless and ruthless and had no problem with killing innocents. And finally, we saw him in the Cobra armor, joining the ranks of Destro and Baroness. The good news is, guys, that this is just the beginning. There's still a long journey ahead before he becomes the new Cobra Commander. So stick along, because he might be the best we've seen yet. Cobra Commander origin in G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra 2009 movie. How many of you guys remember the crazy revelation of Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing Cobra Commander in the live-action film? Now, I will say I think the criticism is harsh. He wasn't given a whole lot to work with and was still one of the better parts of the film. As for his origins, before becoming Cobra Commander, this version of the character was actually a good guy. Crazy, right? Well, he was sort of a good guy. Throughout most of the film, he's referred to as the Doctor, but his real name is actually Rexford G. Rex Lewis. And he was a brilliant young scientist working with the US military alongside Duke, who at the time was both his mentor and friend. Oh, and Rex Lewis was also Anna's brother. You know, Anna, Duke's ex-fiancée Anna, the Anna who eventually becomes the Baroness. Yep, they're all connected. So, at the beginning of the story, Rex isn't a villain at all. He's basically the idealistic science guy working for the military. But everything changes during a mission in East Africa. You see, Rex and Duke were investigating a secret weapons facility when things suddenly went very, very wrong. The airstrike was called too early and the whole place was destroyed. Duke managed to escape, but they all presumed Rex to have died in the explosion. But Rex had survived, although severely disfigured, because of which he had to use the special breathing mask. And he always blamed Duke for not saving him, for not going after his friend. He blamed Duke for his circumstances and what happened to him. Now the twist is that right before the explosion, Rex found McCullen's experimental research on nanomites by Dr. Mindbender. He eventually learned everything he could about the nanomites from Dr. Mindbender, and this is where Rex Lewis slowly disappears, and Cobra Commander is born. In fact, he tests his knowledge with his own sister Anna by implanting nanomites within her. That's not exactly healthy sibling behavior, man! And that's how he began creating his own army of Neo-Vipers who would be under his control and loyal only to him. And that's the story of how an unassuming scientist became corrupted into the Cobra Commander. By the end of the movie, Rex has completely embraced his new identity, breathing mask and all. Cobra Commander origin in Energon universe. Things are about to get very interesting now, guys. This version of the Cobra Commander was a whole reinvention. The Energon universe comics published by Skybound was actually connected to the Transformers storyline. Now in this continuity, Cobra Commander begins as a human outsider who is taken in by the secret underground civilization known as Cobra La. We all already know about Cobra La. It's led by Globulus and is an ancient society that's all about organic biotechnology and cannot stand mechanical technology, viewing it as dangerous and unnatural. And Globulus recruits Cobra Commander to do his bidding in the world. But little did they know, Cobra Commander was actually a tech head. He is super fascinated with machines and everything inorganic, particularly Cybertronian technology. Things are cooking. Then at some point, Cobra La scientists discover a captured alien specimen, which was basically the broken body of Megatron, the Decepticon leader. And as expected, most of Cobra La hates that thing. But not Cobra Commander. He sees the powered-down body of the Decepticon as an opportunity to gain power. He secretly begins experimenting with Megatron's technology and extracts a powerful energy source known as Energon. But guys, he doesn't stop there. This evil mastermind even goes to the lengths of instigating a riot within Cobra La to gain political power. But come on, how long can you really do all this underhanded stuff before the heads find out? Of course, Globulus soon discovered his betrayal and ordered Cobra Commander to be executed. But guys, this is Cobra Commander we're talking about. Ain't no way he's going down that easy. He's already made some super sick tech. And when the guards surround him, he releases a swarm of small robotic insect drones and kills them all. He also gives a pretty convincing speech to Globulus, showing him the kind of power he's harnessed for Cobra La and that he's willing to do whatever it takes to prove his loyalty to Cobra La. All he wants is a new title and permission to embark on a special mission in the outside world. And that's exactly what he got. Except, before leaving for his quote-unquote mission, he stole a bunch of Energon and data from the Cybertronian technology. You see, his plan was to conquer the human world using Energon-powered technology and basically build his own army. He realized that if Megatron existed, there were many more similar energy signatures out there, and he had to get his hands on all of them. After all, Energon didn't just power, it was transformative, and he wanted more. He wanted to become invincible not just on Earth but across any and all worlds. Ambitious, I must say. Now, interestingly, by the time the events of the G.I. Joe 2024 comic series begin, Cobra Commander is already operating in the shadows as a powerful off-screen mastermind. There are attacks and covert operations happening all around the world that are destabilizing governments. All of a sudden, there's advanced weapons on the black market. And there's one hidden player behind it all, Cobra Commander and his secret Energon research programs. He is using all the Energon to create experimental weapons and prototypes. But guess what? He and his organization become such a threat to the world that eventually there's the creation of a new international strike team designed to stop him. And that's none other than G.I. Joe. So in the Energon universe timeline, Cobra Commander's actions are literally the reason the G.I. Joe program exists. Crazy, right? Cobra Commander Origin UK continuities. Okay, so this one gets weird, and not many of you might have heard of it. You see, in the British Action Force comics, Cobra Commander actually starts life as an entirely different villain. He was originally known as Baron Ironblood. What a badass name, right? He was the leader of the Red Shadows, which was basically just another terrorist organization with a bunch of brainwashed soldiers and some really cool high-tech weapons. And as you expect from our Cobra Commander, whether in this life or another, he and his organization were considered the single greatest threat to world security by the UN. Ironblood was literally named World Enemy Number 1. Now that's an achievement of a lifetime right there. But then, things had to be changed in 1985 when Hasbro started to market G.I. Joe in the UK, and that too under the Action Force name. So no more Baron Ironblood and Red Shadows, they had to be replaced with Cobra Commander and Cobra. All they had to do was tweak the storyline since the entities were basically the same anyway. So what happened to Red Shadows? Well, Baron Ironblood believed that his organization had grown weak. He was tired of the group's failures, and instead of fixing the organization, he decided to just go ahead and destroy it. Ironblood secretly leaked the locations of the Red Shadows bases to the Action Force authorities, and that was the end of Red Shadows. But he also had to destroy the identity of Ironblood, so he went to Southeast Asia and got some next-level plastic surgery done so that he could take on a whole new identity and leave behind his past. And boy was he unrecognizable. He got a new mask, a new costume, and a new identity. Cobra Commander. He even went a step further and went through a procedure that would give him immunity towards all forms of snake venom. And once he emerged, he began the process of recruiting soldiers into a brand new terrorist organization. But it wasn't easy at all, since all his illegal money with which he was going to finance his new venture had been stolen by an ex-Red Shadow member called Red Jackal. But here's the twist, guys. Ironblood, or Cobra Commander, had to literally resurrect and build him as a cyborg, and this cyborg went on to become none other than Destro. And guys, that's how Cobra was born in the UK continuity. He began his life as a terrorist mastermind and ended as the same. No sad backstory, no tragic accidents, just a man who just really loves power. And that's what Cobra Commander is all about.
You will address me as Commander. Cobra Commander.
Cobra Commander Origin, G.I. Joe, Renegades. Okay, now this one's a pretty cool origin story that low-key gives me like Lex Luthor vibes, if you know what I mean. No? Wait, I'll explain. In the series G.I. Joe Renegades, Cobra Commander is actually a corporate mastermind. And why do I like this origin story? Well, because it low-key feels kinda realistic, right? I mean, we live in a world that's run by rich corporate billionaires, and they're high-key evil. So yeah, to the public he's just Adam DeCobre, the CEO of a massive multinational corporation called Cobra Industries. But behind the curtains, he's one ruthless son of a gun. You see, Cobra Industries from the outside seems like just any other company. They sell pharmaceuticals, technology, medical products, and all that stuff. But of course, they're still a terrorist organization. No changes on that front. Oh, and surprise, surprise, Adam DeCobre isn't his real name. Typical egotistical Cobra Commander stuff. No one can ever know his identity, apparently. But wait, there's something that sets him apart from other incarnations. Adam DeCobre is actually secretly suffering from a serious medical condition that has disfigured his face. This time it isn't a lab experiment gone wrong or spores from Cobra Law, but just an unfortunate illness. And because of his terminal illness, he has to wear a full breathing mask covered by plastic shielding wrap. So obviously he can't really appear in public looking like himself with his mask and shit. What does he do instead? He only appears in public as a normal-looking virtual simulation or hologram over video screen. Only a trusted few, including the Baroness and Dr. Mindbender, know about his real appearance. In fact, Cobra Commander funds the scientific research done by Dr. Mindbender in hopes for some cure, or maybe even immortality. This guy's never just happy with a little, is he? And even though he's a little incompetent. I know they all are, but this reincarnation is particularly so. He still has a pretty good rap sheet. Bioengineered weapons, mutated soldiers called Biovipers, experimental weapons. My guy has done it all. What is Cobra Commander up to now in the ongoing G.I. Joe 2024 comic? Okay guys, remember the Energon universe? Well, that story continued with the G.I. Joe comics that started in 2024 and have been running still. You know his origin, but what evil plan is he plotting now? We've got Duke leading a newly formed G.I. Joe strike team with characters like Clutch, Covergirl, Stalker, and Rock and Roll. And Cobra Commander is full on deploying Energon-powered weapons and transforming his army. As the storyline continues, more factions come into play with the Cobra, the Joes, and the infamous Dreadnoks. Cobra Commander even uses his persuasive nature to manage to strike a deal with the biker gang of Dreadnoks, but nothing looks easy right now. In fact, we see the three factions collide in a super chaotic manner in a battle that even sees the Autobot Hound get involved in all the action. As of now, our Cobra Commander is consolidating power from his base in Springfield, and his plans continue to send shockwaves across the Energon universe. But he's also having to navigate the rising tensions with those closest to him, including his arms dealer Destro and the Baroness. Be ready guys, because something big is coming. This Cobra Commander's ultimate objective is far, far bigger than the usual terrorism, so stay tuned. So, after looking at all these different versions, one thing becomes clear, that Cobra Commander isn't just one guy. He's an idea, an entity that any one of us could be if pushed to the extreme. Only one thing remains constant. He wants power. He thinks the world is broken and only he can fix it. Now you know. And knowing is half the battle. Get the reference, guys? Okay, but which Cobra Commander origin story is your favorite? Let us know in the comments down below. So until next time, Cobra!